Now, please meet Hannah Greenbaum Solomon, educating in Park Ridge. Hannah Greenbaum Solomon was a renowned leader and social activist. She founded the National Council for Jewish Women in 1893. In the early 1900s, she led the restructuring of the Illinois Industrial School for Girls and its move to Park Ridge. Solomon worked her entire life to help people, especially women and children. She served with Jane Addams at Hull House aiding immigrants. They worked together on many other projects, including the School for Girls. Solomon also worked with Susan B. Anthony at the International Council of Women in Berlin in 1904, where they worked on issues such as women's suffrage and education. In 1908, Hannah Solomon, president of the board of the Illinois Industrial School for Girls, worked with Jane Addams and other board members to move the school from Evanston to Park Ridge. Hannah Solomon and board members raised most of the money to build the school. Many of the buildings, including this building, named after Hannah Solomon, called the Solomon Cottage, were designed by Chicago architecture firm Halliburd and Roach. In 1913, the name was officially changed to the Park Ridge School for Girls. The school had first been opened to care for orphans after the Civil War. In 1926, the Park Ridge School for Girls celebrated that history with their golden anniversary. Hannah Solomon believed that women could do anything. She felt women belonged wherever they felt their duty fulfilled, at home, ironing, or out in the world, or both. Hannah Solomon said that no project affected me more deeply than the Park Ridge School for Girls. She remained involved with the school for decades.
You now meet Mother Frances Cabrini, who provided in Park Ridge. Mother Frances Cabrini was a Roman Catholic nun from Italy. She founded the Missionary Sisters of the Sacred Heart in 1880 to help the poor and the vulnerable, especially Italian immigrants. She traveled throughout Europe, Central and South America, and North America. She established 67 convents, schools, hospitals, and orphanages. In 1909, she became a United States citizen. In 1917, Mother Cabrini purchased a farm in Park Ridge, near the corner of Northwest Highway and D Road, in order to supply fresh food to her hospitals and orphanages in Chicago. In 1946, 29 years after her death, Mother Cabrini was proclaimed a saint by Pope Pius XII. Please see the picture of St. Paul the Cross Church with the original 1911 building on the left, where Mother Cabrini attended Mass. Immigrants have been a significant part of America for centuries. Sometimes other Americans have been welcoming to the immigrants, and other times they have sought to restrict them. Between 1880 and 1910, over 15 million immigrants, mostly from Europe, settled in the United States. Immigrants often had a hard time adjusting to their new homes, learning a new language, finding a place to live, and securing a job was not easy. Institutions like those created by Mother Frances Cabrini helped provide immigrants necessities like hospitals and schools. Mother Cabrini quotes, "I want to help the poor immigrants. I do not want anyone to interfere with the good that I would do." How should we care for those in need today?
Now, please meet Clara Bark Wells, who created in Park Ridge. In 1905, she opened the Kalo Art Craft Community in her home at 322 Grant Place. Kalo comes from the Greek, meaning beautiful. There she designed, taught, and oversaw metalwork, which was sold under the Kalo name. Her motto was beautiful, useful, enduring. She hired women and immigrants, which was unusual at the time. As well as promoting women in the arts, Clara Bark Wells was also active in gaining women's suffrage, the right to vote. At a time when not as many women were artists or business people, Wells made sure that women's talents were recognized. The women's suffrage movement was the fight for women to gain the right to vote and run for political office. It was part of a larger movement for equal rights for women. In the United States, the women's rights movement became popular after the Seneca Falls Convention in 1848, the first ever convention for women's rights. Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony were key leaders in the fight for women's rights. In the early 1900s, the fight for women's suffrage grew stronger with more active campaigns like demonstrations, parades, and marches in large cities and Washington, D.C. Many women felt that Congress supporting democracy for the world in World War I while denying women's participation at home was hypocritical. Women finally won the right to vote in 1920 with the 19th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. Clara was quoted in 1913 as saying, "A parade will awaken our legislators to the ever-increasing strength of suffrage sentiment and bring home to them forcibly the mighty significance of the women's movement."
Meet Hillary Rodham Clinton, coming of age in Park Ridge. Hillary Rodham Clinton became who she is today growing up in Park Ridge in the 1950s and 1960s. She participated in Brownies and Girl Scouts, played in a girls' softball league, and worked for the Park District. At Eugene Field School, Clinton was elected co-captain of the Safety Patrol. Her involvement in government and politics, seeking fairness and justice, started young. In high school, first at Maine East and then at the first class of Maine South, Clinton ran for student government president. She lost. One of her male opponents told her she was really stupid if she thought a girl could be elected president. She went on to head the organizations committee and did most of the work. She had been a strong supporter of women's rights and equality for everyone ever since. Hillary is known as quoted, "My childhood in the 1950s and the politics of the 1960s awakened my sense of obligation to my country and my commitment to service." After World War II, America experienced what we now call the baby boom. Couples married young and had families quickly. Jobs that women had covered during the war were now again done by men. Women were generally expected to take care of the home and children while the men worked. Girls growing up in the 1950s and 60s were limited from participating in many activities like sports and student government. But many girls who were encouraged to participate like Hillary Rodham Clinton and her friends made strides in expanding women's involvement. Today, while there are so many steps to take in bringing equality to all areas of society, women have more opportunities than ever. Hillary asks, what can you do to break trails and help make the world a better place for everyone?